Is a geology professor at Western Carolina, and he's the director of the Program for the Study of Developed Shorelines, a research and policy outreach center serving coastal communities. Recently, he's worked with Cape Lookout to assess vulnerability in the village's historic buildings and has piloted a program for vulnerability assessments of homes in Down East. You got a PowerPoint, Bob?
Well, I do have a PowerPoint, but I'm not going to use it because I'm going to try and catch us up. So I'm just going to take 15 minutes so that we can actually, since we haven't had a break this morning, and try and catch us all up. So don't move. I promise. I might steal a little time right after lunch. At some point, we have to talk about what we do, right? So I'm going to try and just outline what I think we need to do at a sort of a higher level, and we can talk about this during lunch. From my perspective, first thing we need to do is keep people dry. That's priority number one. All the rest is just window dressing. We need to help folks understand their exposure to hazards, raise their homes if they can, raise their utilities, fix their roofs. We need to keep people dry. That's goal number one, and that's what our vulnerability assessments are supposed to accomplish. We do work at the parcel level. So, and I'll show a couple of slides right after lunch, and take a little bit of time to do that then. If we keep people dry, number two is people need to be able to get to and from their homes, and we need to get utilities to and from their homes, right? So we keep folks dry, and they still need to be able to drive to work in the grocery store. So the transportation infrastructure is number two. We need to have a detailed understanding for where the pinch points are, where the roads are flooding, and what it's going to be like 10 years from now. Not just what it's like now, but it's like 15 years from now. Where can we raise roads? Where do we need to replace culverts? We need to understand the ditches. We can't just go out there with a shovel and start clearing everything because we have to do this in an organized way. Each little community, I think, needs their own flood study. We need to map the ditches. We need to survey the elevations. This is not rocket science. A consultant like JMT could do this easily. Somebody's got to pay for it. Somebody's got to organize it. Somebody's got to make it happen. That's not going to be me. Number three is septic. I mean, I hate to put a number on this, but I guarantee you that we'd be lucky if half the in-ground septic systems down east are functioning. And just because you can still flush your toilet doesn't mean your septic system is functioning biologically. Now, most wells are deep enough that that's probably not a concern for what's coming out of your faucet. But I hate to pick on Davis Shores, but if I was living in certain parts of Davis Shores, I wouldn't let my kids play in the ditch water. We need to understand that. We need to talk about it. We need to figure out what to do about that. We need to be monitoring that water quality. These are not easy problems to solve, but we need to have that conversation. And to Chris's point, we need to have that sort of carrying capacity conversation. I can't tell you how many times in the last 24 hours I've had people come up to me frustrated with the nature of the new development that's going on down east, where folks are filling and building, filling wetlands, building in places where we know that septic system cannot possibly be perking. And folks who are generally suspicious of regulation are looking at this and going, Every time seem to do something, I get regulated, and I look around me, and there's lots of folks who don't seem to get regulated. And unfortunately, a lot of the people who might answer some of those questions for us at the county level are not with us for these 2 days to help us find solutions or have that discussion. I don't know how to fix that either. Those are my 3 steps. Keep people dry, transportation, infrastructure, and utilities, and planning for how we maintain that in the future. And then understanding water treatment and septic and the public health implications for those systems that are probably failing. And the final piece to all of this, I think, is trying to understand how we tap into some of those infrastructure dollars that have become available over the last couple of years that just don't seem to make their way down east. And quite frankly, don't seem to make their way into most unincorporated areas in the eastern counties in North Carolina. Or the western counties, quite frankly, either. It's not a problem that is unique to this place. I'm on the ground after every major hurricane that hits somewhere in the continental United States. And I'll tell you one quick little story about Louisiana. In coastal Louisiana, we've spent $10 billion in the last 10 years on efforts to reduce storm surge to help communities. We spent $10 billion. We've built 26 miles of barrier island off the coast of southern Louisiana. 26 miles. We are restoring wetlands. We are doing massive river diversions. It's environmental restoration, and that's great. I love environment. That's great. But we talk about these projects as a way to help communities when we're advocating for them. This is both NGOs and government. Everybody's on board. Well, I was in Louisiana after Hurricane Ida, and everything south of New Orleans was still wiped out. People lost their shrimp boats and their house in the same storm. And none of these people had flood insurance. They're in legacy homes. They don't have a mortgage. Nobody's making them have flood insurance. Plus, flood insurance is too expensive for these people to afford anyway. So we spent all that money. We celebrate resilience. But I'm not sure anybody's really asking at the parcel level, are people really being helped? So how can we tap into all of the new sources of funding available from the federal government that comes to the state and find a way to get some of those funds into a place like down East North Carolina and do meaningful projects? That's what we really need to know. That's what we really need to know at the end of the day from a meeting like this. Whether we'll get there by the end of today, I don't know. But these are the questions I think that we really need to be answering. We can identify pretty clearly what we need to do in so many ways. But connecting the dots between the resilience funding that is available at the federal level and the state level and getting it here is the tricky part at the end of the day. I've even been having this crazy idea that we need to form a nonprofit that can serve as a partner for a lot of those funds, and to start with one thing, that nonprofit might just fund raising homes. That's all. Simple job. A nonprofit with the capacity to partner with whatever pot of money might be available at the state level, county level, federal level, and just work with folks to raise homes or match the cost, which I think is somewhere between $40,000 and $60,000 per house, depending. We have to stop talking and start doing stuff. And we need our elected officials to really engage and help make that happen. We're trying to do our tiny little part with these vulnerability assessments, but this is just the tip of the iceberg, really. It's just a start to give folks the information that they need. And then here's the last part, and this is the hardest damn thing to say down east, but I'm going to say it because that's why people hate me. It's because I say things that people don't want to hear. Is that we aren't going to be able to protect every parcel down east. And we aren't going to be able to keep every single parcel dry. We can't. We're not going to be able to. That's the truth. But we don't have to head for the hills. Not now. Not right now. No. There are places that are still buildable and defensible. But we have to be realistic about where those places are and where the places that we can't defend over the next decade or two are. There are some high and dry ridges down east still, areas that don't have houses on them still, believe it or not. But for some reason, all the dingbatters, as Karen calls them, like to come put houses in the wetlands. I don't get it. Or your Dollar General comes in and they bring in 10 feet of fill and put their Dollar General on top of a mountain here on Harker's Island, sitting right next to some poor soul in a single wide, catching all their stormwater. I think that we could create a plan for down east where folks could move around a little bit and try and keep these communities together. If we spend all of our time and money trying to protect the places that are at greatest risk, then we will be wasting that money. We need to spend the money on the places that we can defend over the longest period of time. And that could still be a few generations. It really could be in some spots. But we need to have an honest discussion about that. The folks that might have to move, we need to find a place for them. And all of that discussion has to go on simultaneously with fixing all the other problems that I started with. And it's not easy, but it's doable, I think. I think it's doable. I don't think everybody has to leave tomorrow. But the best way to make sure that we keep these communities together for the longest period of time possible is to be able to have that honest discussion about the places that we probably can't defend, help make those folks whole, and spend our resources on the places that we can defend. And those are places where we keep people dry, keep the infrastructure there. I don't know what to do about septic. That's not my area of expertise. That's not too pessimistic, is it, Karen? I'm happy to spend the rest of my life and career helping. That's all I can do. So let's have lunch.